The series begins with a boy, his name is Danny, guy who's just chilling in his house, totally engrossed in this vintage movie NYTE. He's watching MT. We find out this is Danny, who's 18 years old, has never left his house ever before his dad. Steve had this mega fear of the outside world, and basically kept him indoors all the time. Meanwhile, Steve is out of the house making a rare call to his sister who he hasn't talked to in ages. He gives her their address and asks her to come over the urgental the next day. When she asks why, he just cuts her off without any explanation and hangs up. Soon Steve gets back home, carrying a hunting rifle he then sets aside. He checks in on his son, finds him asleep in front of the TV, wakes him up and tries to send him to bed. Danny wants to chill with his dad a bit longer, but Steve insists it's bedtime. Then, he reminds Danny that he loves him and always will. We find out they live in this secluded house in the middle of a forest with no neighbors around. The next day, his sister arrives at the house and knocks, but there is no answer. Inside, Danny is all alone, freaked out because he's never left the house or seen anyone besides his dad. He's too scared to open the door and just sits there petrified as his aunt begins to feel anxious and calls the police. The cops arrive and break into the house to look for Steve. They find Danny standing terrified and take him with them. Just after they leave, they find Steve's body in the woods near the house with his rifle beside him. They realize that he's committed suicide, and sister, who's just learned about her brother's demise, is shocked and answers. Danny is taken to the hospital where a psychiatrist attempts to talk to him to understand more about his life. This because Danny seems very disturbed. However, Danny is still terrified and doesn't respond. His aunt, sorrowful, decides to adopt him and brings to live with her. On their way to her house, Danny's all in awe of the streets and houses he's seeing for the first time. Once they're home, Danny's is introduced to his new family that includes Erin, her older son, were young twins, and her husband, Paul. Erin doesn't seem too thrilled about Danny living with them and occupying his room. Paul offers to take Danny to his room. Meanwhile, Danny's aunt talks to Erin, explaining Danny's situation, how his father committed suicide and how his mother passed away a long time ago. Because of Danny's hardships, he has no other place to stay. She urges Erin to treat Danny well as they're all he has left. In the middle of the night, Danny wakes up terrified